Hey, what's up guys? Matt Laidlaw here, coming to you from Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson, LA area's oldest, largest, and finest Harley dealership. So today we're going to be going over the brand new 2017 Street Rod 750. This is a brand new mid-model year launch. The second one, the first being the Road King Special. So Harley-Davidson just announced this bike about 2 weeks ago, and so I'm going to be doing a full in-depth review on this thing. So stay tuned and I'll show you all the details you need to know about this brand new Harley-Davidson motorcycle. Did we get one of the street rods? Did we get the street rod, man?
Street what?
The street rod.
What do you mean?
The new bike, the street rod. This is the new one, yeah.
It looks ugly like me?
No, not as ugly as you.
You're such a nice guy, I can't believe it. I love you too, man.
Alright guys, so let me jump into some of the specifics on this brand new 2017 Street Rod. So this is a vivid black. It's one of 3 colors. It also comes in a olive pearl, which I showed already, and also a charcoal denim, which is similar to the color that we've seen on some of the other models. But let me jump into some of the major features that were upgraded this year. First of all, the 43mm inverted forks. Guys, this is a huge improvement over the prior street models. The suspension, the front and rear suspension on this bike has been so much more improved, and you can, as a result, you can ride this bike so much more aggressively. You've also got the dual disc brakes on the front as well. The braking on this bike, guys, has always kind of been the Achilles heel of this motorcycle, and this was addressed in a huge way with this new Street Rod 750. The braking capabilities have been much improved. You got this drag style bar here, guys, really cool, aggressive, like dirt tracker racer style bar, which is kind of the direction cosmetically and marketing wise that Harley-Davidson is taking this bike in. You've also got some bar in mirrors. I'll get a better shot at that in a minute, but the bar in mirrors are similar to what you've seen. I don't know if you guys saw my Caffeine Racer build on the Roadster, but the bar in mirrors come stock on this bike. This is the high output Revolution 750 engine, water cooled, kind of similar to, I've made this comparison before, similar to like the V-Rod. It's a full water jacket, so this is a full water-cooled engine. This is a over square engine, which I'll get into in a little bit in the future here. This is a brand new tail section, guys. Really, really improved. Cosmetically, it looks way better. It gives it more of an aggressive dirt tracker racer look. These shocks, guys, are way better than the regular Street 500 and Street 750. They call these the piggyback shock. They have that reservoir in there. Basically, when you're going through like heavy use of the shock in high heat situations, they perform a lot better. This little plastic tail section that mounts the turn signals and the license plate, I would say is probably the one and only eyesore on the bike cosmetically. You've got LED rear tail light and turn signals, which is really nice because they're very bright, less draw on the battery, less maintenance, they last longer, you're not changing light bulbs out. This seat, I think, is one of the things that I think many reviewers are going to miss on this bike as a huge improvement. This more aggressive seat has the cupping shape to it, a little perforated leather. You know, the fit and quality and finish is a lot better. That old seat, you were sliding around like a slip and slide. You hit the brakes, you'd slide forward. You hit the gas real hard, and you'd slide backwards like an old banana seat you'd find on one of those old school bicycles. Foot controls are okay. I'd say the foot controls are definitely set up for people with small feet. That's kind of one of my complaints about this bike that I'll get into in a little bit more. But again, it's only a complaint you'll probably have if you have a size 13 shoe or bigger like myself. Here's another shot of those bar end mirrors. Really nice, high quality bar end mirror. There's so many manufacturers out there that have these bar end mirrors that are plastic and crappy and they bend. These are really nice, high quality metal into them. One thing I'll say that kind of is a nice segue into my next subject here, and that is the fit and finish on this street rod is really back up to par with what you'd expect from a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. I feel like when the Street 500 and 750 came out, Harley-Davidson was so focused on getting it to a lower price point, which they did successfully. But as a result, I feel like they had to compromise a little bit in the fit and finish, and some of the wiring and the wiring connectors and things like that were just not what I'm used to seeing in a nice finished Harley-Davidson product. So with this street rod, they really brought their fit and finish and their high quality manufacturing back. Things like the finishes on the paint and the plastics and everything is just, once again, top notch to what I'm used to seeing in a Harley-Davidson. But you're also paying more for this bike too, so it's all kind of a give and take. Alright, so I'm going to show you guys a little bit more of a close-up of the locking and the instrumentation, the speedo and all that good stuff. So yeah, your key goes in there, key stays in there like a Sportster. It's not keyless like a lot of the other bikes. You got your odometer, a trip A, a trip B. Hold down this little rubber button to zero those out. You got a clock. You also have your gear and your RPM as well. So I'll go ahead and start this up. This is the kill switch here, so you're going to want to make sure this is on run. So yes, these bikes have more of a modern sound to them. They don't sound like your traditional Harley, although I think they do sound pretty good for what they are. So to lock this thing and fork lock it, you turn the bars all the way to the left and you turn the key all the way counterclockwise to fork lock, and that's the one and only lock there, and you take the key out and you're good to go. So one more click clockwise unlocks the fork, but still has your ignition locked. So this is your fuel tank, again 3.5 gallons. It's a locking cap. Spin the key, pull the cap off. It's easier to put it back on with two hands, but I struggle to put it back on with one hand there. Turn signals, everything's on the left. It's kind of like a sport bike that you see commonly. You got the left and right turn signal on the left. So I wanted to give you guys a shot of just a regular street 750 motorcycle. So the easiest way to tell the difference between the 750 and the 500, aside from the number on the air filter, is you've got the highlighted fins on the engine. But you know, if you look close, guys, just a lot of things like the foot controls there are different. The manufacturing just isn't as high quality as on the street rod. The shocks in the rear aren't nearly as good. The technology isn't as advanced as the technology in the shock on the new street rod. The tail section, as you can see, is a little bit more of a wraparound, less distance between the top of the rear tire. Here you can kind of see the rear fender. You've got a lot of distance. You got more travel in the rear shocks. Again, the shocks are just way better. The forks here, you can see smaller diameter fork. They're not inverted. Definitely more of your rudimentary technology. As a result, guys, and I'll go more into this when I get into the riding portion of this video, but you just can't ride this 750 street as aggressively as the new street rod. I mean, it's nowhere close. So the seat on this thing, you can tell right away, the design is a lot more simple. It's more of your like pillowy type seat, more cushion. The new street rod has more of a firm, performance-oriented seat to it. So you got the handlebar here that has a slight rise to it. On the street rod, you've got that straight across drag bar to it. Foot controls once again. Dare I use the word flimsy, but they are a little bit more on the flimsy side on this bike. It just seems like everything is just tighter, and manufacturing quality is better on the street rod. So the fairing, you can see, is not color matched on these bikes. On the new street rods, the fairings are color matched, and it's just a better, nicer, higher quality fairing as well. Not that one functionality wise is going to keep the wind off you better than the other, but you know, the ones on these 750s, the old 750 is just kind of very simple. All right, let me draw some comparisons here between the new Street 750 and the old Street 750 and the Iron 883, because I think when you're buying one of these new street rods, these are the two bikes that you're going to compare this new bike to the most. So let's start with pricing. So $86.99 for the new street rod. An Iron is $8,994, and the old Street 750 is $7,400. So you're about $1,100 for this new street rod. And you know, I still think the old street has its place for certain customers. I'll jump into that a little bit more in the future. But I think a lot of people are going to ask, before I go into that, I'll just point out real quick, you can get security as an option on this bike, and you can get ABS as an option on all three of these motorcycles as well. Again, the three motorcycles we're comparing are the new street rod, the Iron 883, and the old just regular Street 750. So 3.5 gallon fuel tank on all of these. The Iron has 0.2 gallons less at 3.3. Now the weight is about 50 pounds lighter than the Iron 883, and it's about 20 pounds heavier than the regular 750 street. So fuel economy, they all get like low 50s. I wouldn't really use that as a determining factor to make one over another. I would like to point out too, the rear wheel in a street rod 750 is a 17-inch rear wheel as opposed to a 15-inch in the regular street 750, which makes a big difference. Again, you get more ground clearance, and it kind of gives it more of that, it's just a cooler looking bike. Just the look of it, the aesthetic is a lot better with the bigger wheel in the rear there. So the lean angle, guys, is significantly better on the new street rod. You can see the torque there is up about 3 foot-pounds of torque, which, by the way, I should probably touch on this a little bit more too. The new engine, they call it the high output. They didn't change the displacement or anything like that. They did a couple tweaks. So on the new high output Revolution X750 engine, you've got a dual throttle body. You have new cylinder heads, enhanced intake ports and cams. You've got a 12-to-1 compression ratio. That's up from an 11-to-1 compression ratio. So what that equates to is it gives you about 18% more horsepower and 8% more torque when compared to the regular Street 750. So this is Harley-Davidson's video that they produced, and they just barely released it when they announced this new Street Rod 750. So it kind of showcases the bike, and what's kind of cool is they really put this rider, and they have this video in the environment that this motorcycle excels at, and I'm kind of going to go into that more in depth in my riding portion of this video. But you know, Harley-Davidson really postures this bike as an urban brawler type motorcycle, so it really does excel at like inner city areas, places with you know, tight areas, lots of cars, lots of traffic. And really, I would agree with that 100% in my test ride. This bike is really suited for that type of riding. So I kind of tried to mimic the riding that you saw in this video a little bit in this type of an environment. So here we go. So when I was all through riding this bike, the first thing that came into my head is that this bike is now exactly the way that I had hoped the original Street 750 would have been when I first rode it. Yeah, this all the things that the regular 750 and 500 streets kind of fell short on. This bike has improved on those and then some. I'll link my original review of the Street 750 in this video as well. I'll have it at the end screen. I'll link it in a card up here as well. But there's some things that I point out that in my pros and cons that are cons of the Street 750 that this bike really addressed in a huge way. So, and I'm kind of repeating myself now, but the suspension, as I first got on this bike, it handled my weight. I weigh about 215 pounds. Handled my weight phenomenally. I really felt like I could ride this bike really aggressively. The Street 500 and 750, I can't really say that those bikes now, I would say, kind of fall more into the niche of a real casual beginner type bike. If you're looking for a low price point, the lowest price point, but still get into a Harley-Davidson, those are great bikes. But really, the suspension on the braking on those original Street 500 and 750, the braking and suspension does not keep up with this engine. This engine's pretty peppy for the weight and what this bike is, and the braking and the suspension on the old versions just aren't in line with really how aggressively this bike can be ridden. So that, in combination with the greater lean angle, this bike is just a lot more fun. It's a more fun bike to ride. So yeah, even with my weight on here, I really felt like I could whip this thing around. I could go fast, brake hard in the turns. I could lean the bike over in the turns, and I felt like the suspension was stiff enough to where I didn't have like this mushy feeling going through the turns. And so yeah, I'm a fan of this bike, definitely. So while I'm talking about pros and cons, I guess I should point out some of the things that I don't like in particular, and some of these are just kind of based on my size and the size of the potential rider. But I feel like the foot controls were higher quality and tighter. The brakes were a lot tighter, the rear brake especially, but the foot controls were really small. I feel like the brake pedal, the rear brake pedal, was really small, and as a result of the smaller controls, they put this little foot pad on the top of the exhaust to kind of rest your heel on, which is fine, and it worked and everything. But I will admit I have really big feet. I have about a size 13 shoe, so if you're a little bit smaller foot, I don't think this will be a problem as much. I do think that this bike is intended for a smaller rider. I think if I weighed 180 pounds or so and was like 7 inches shorter, it would be a great fit. I think the guy that rode this motorcycle in Harley-Davidson's promo video that I showed earlier, I mean, that guy looks like he's probably like $170, and he's like 5'8" or something like that. So the bike is set up for a little bit shorter rider, and I totally get, I know I'm going to get comments where I was like, yeah, not everybody's freakishly tall like you are, Matt, and I get that. So I wouldn't really say that's much of a con, just more of an observation I made, me being the height I am. The turn signal situation, you can see in this video a couple times I left it on. I'm used to motorcycles that have self-canceling turn signals. This bike does not have that. The turn signal switch is kind of a cheaper version of what you see on all the other Harley-Davidsons. We see these nice big switches on the right and on the left for the corresponding or correlating turn signal. On this bike, you just have one switch on the left that it's similar to what you commonly see on some of the other makes of motorcycles out there, where you click it left or right, and you click the center button to cancel out the turn signal. So I found myself commonly leaving the turn signal on. That's just kind of a small nitpicky thing. The mirrors are really cool. They actually are really wide, so you can see behind you really well. So the viewing angle of the rear view mirrors is really good. I will say this bike being what it is, and I'm sure a lot of these are going to get sold in Los Angeles and California where lane splitting is legal. It adds a little extra width to the bike that makes it so splitting lanes isn't as easy as it would have been had the mirrors been mounted just on the regular grips like they normally are. That being said, I wouldn't change them. I think the cafe style look on the bar ends looks really cool and really sleek, and it kind of adds to the character of the motorcycle. So I got this bike up to about 70 miles an hour, and it got up there really quickly. It has a 6-speed transmission. So in 6th gear, I felt like this engine pulls 6th gear pretty good. The difference between the regular 750 and this high output 750 isn't too dramatic. Again, it's about an 18% horsepower increase, about an 8% torque increase. So real world, I mean, you can feel it a little bit if you ride them back to back, but it's not a huge change. But I will say the regular Street 500, it's pretty sluggish especially when you get it up to the higher speeds. Like, it's really not a freeway bike at all. But in 6th gear, this thing pulls pretty good with this engine. So I mean, you can do the short freeway rides and everything on this bike, no problem. But yeah, the engine, I would say, has plenty of power for the weight and what this bike is. So guys, in closing, I want to kind of give you some buyer guides or some buyer tips, because I know a lot of you guys watch these videos of mine that are researching bikes and thinking about making a purchase on one of them. So let me take a couple minutes and kind of give you some pieces of advice and who I would recommend this bike to. So the regular Street 500 and the regular Street 750, I would say if you're a brand new rider, you want to get into a Harley-Davidson, maybe you're not a brand new rider, but you're a rider that's more casual, you're not very aggressive, you want a low price point Harley, but you know you want a Harley-Davidson, those bikes are good. This bike, I would say, is more suited for somebody that wants to ride these bikes more aggressively. And you guys have probably kind of got that feeling from the video so far. But for guys, maybe you have dirt bike riding experience, maybe you're a younger guy, 16, 17, 18 years old, maybe in your low 20s or something like that. You still feel like you're invincible. You want to ride a little bit quicker bike. I would say definitely get the street rod. If you ride those 750 and 500 regular street aggressively at all, it's just not, the suspension and the braking just is not going to keep up with you. So yeah, I would say that's kind of the biggest determining factor I would really look at when you're trying to decide between those two bikes. If you're looking at this bike and maybe an iron, I would ask myself, okay, am I buying a Harley because I want the traditional air-cooled potato type sound and feel, the rumble, the vibration, the real mechanical, old school, classic feel of a Harley-Davidson? If you want all those things, you should get an iron. This is more of your modern, no vibration, really smooth engine, higher revving. These are for the guys that are a little bit more of a throttle jockey, like to get the RPM up in the spectrum a little bit more and more often. This bike is also better for heavy traffic situations because it is water cooled as opposed to air cooled. So if you're a guy that lives in like downtown LA, I mean, I can't think of a better bike for you than this. I mean, the height is really good. You can go off curbs with this thing. It's great if you're weaving through traffic. If you get caught at a stoplight for a long time, it's water cooled, so it can handle the heat a lot better. The heat mitigation is a lot better on these things. But it doesn't sound like a Harley, and the power curve and the torque, the low end torque, things like that, don't feel like your traditional Harley. A lot of the parts, a lot of the aftermarket parts especially, aren't going to fit these bikes, whereas on the iron, I mean, everything fits an iron. There's a million parts for Sportsters out there. So if you're going to be get into the custom bike builder scene, or you really want to buy a Harley-Davidson for the customization opportunities, because Harley, bar none, is the best, most customizable motorcycle in the world, then get an iron. There are a lot of parts for these streets, and I think Harley will continue to make more because of this new model. but your options are a lot more limited by far. So that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. I hope I was able to help you out. If I was able to help you out, give me a thumbs up and like the video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'm pretty good at getting back to people and answering any questions. If you live in Southern California and you're thinking about getting one of these things, you know where to find me, Laidlaw Harley-Davidson. Thanks a lot for watching, guys.